both Māori and non-Māori live in cities and in rural areas, and what New Zealanders object to deeply and strongly is the constant profiling by citizens by race. Does his statement that, quote, the healthcare system should be treating people equally, is that a statement he stands by? Or is there anything he can do about race being used to prioritise surgical wait list, give out Prezi cards exclusively to pregnant Māori women, a pharmacy service being accessible only to Māori and Pacifica, a separate Māori health authority, and a medical health line that opens with, quote, press 1 if you are Māori?
Yes, absolutely. I recognise that our health system has delivered inequitable outcomes for Māori and Pacific New Zealanders, and proactive targeting of ensuring that we are creating equal outcomes for different population groups, I think is a positive thing.
You go back 70 years, there was actually a 20-year gap between Māori and non-Māori life expectancy in New Zealand. That means that in the last 70 years, the gap is closed by 13. Māori life expectancy has increased more than twice as rapidly as non-Māori life expectancy. And I think people forget that. I think often there's a lot of despondency. People forget the wider context.
But it shouldn't be that way now. We are a modern...
Second issue is, what do we do to continue closing that gap? Well, I would make the point that if we're going to have healthcare, it should be targeted based on the needs of people. I don't accept that the only way we can target healthcare assistance is by lazily racially profiling people, and there's two reasons why that's wrong.
Okay,
the first is that if you start saying that a person is first and foremost defined by their race, you miss things about them. You miss people who are Māori and perfectly healthy, thank you very much.
Yeah.
The second way that you get it wrong is that actually there are non-Māori people who do have the need to have multiple comorbidities, but are also missed because your targeting is based on ethnicity. When your lens for looking at inequality is a racially profiled lens, what you do is that you miss Māori people who don't need the help, you miss non-Māori people who do need the help. You view people primarily as an ethnicity. I think that's wrong. The second reason that I was getting to, why it's wrong to use a racial lens and racially profile people, apart from the fact that it's inaccurate, you miss two types of people, Māori who don't need the help and non-Māori who do, it's that it's also divisive, because when you say a person is primarily an ethnicity, people get resentful. They get resentful when you look at them and you see only a feature that they can never change. We don't have a vision of New Zealand where there's tangata whenua and tangata tiriti, two types of New Zealanders. What we have is a vision where everyone has ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, the same rights and duties, and that means that we can devolve to Pacific, we can devolve to Māori, we can devolve to people that don't have an ethnic profile whatsoever. So you say that's political opportunism. That is cynical and wrong on your part. What we have is a vision where all New Zealanders have the same rights and duties, where services fit all people, and where we go together focused on our common humanity rather than dividing ourselves by the so-called partition. If you want people to leave the country, take their wealth away, then go and vote for the Greens, go and vote for Te Pāti Māori, go and vote for Labour.
What about the
and they will put in place taxes that will chase wealth away. People that have done well won't want to be here. People that have done well overseas won't want to come here. I don't resent people being successful. Well, I think the Labour Party has done a huge amount of damage to New Zealand.
The petition, as you've framed it, this would be the referendum question that New Zealand would answer. So let's have a quick look at this. The proposal says all citizens of New Zealand have the same political rights and duties. It also says that all political authority comes from the people by democratic means, including universal suffrage and regular and free elections with a secret ballot. And it says New Zealand's a multi-ethnic liberal democracy where discrimination based on ethnicity is illegal.
We are now a modern, multi-ethnic society with public institutions that are democratically accountable, and everybody has the same rights and duties. I think that is a wonderful foundation for a country.
Māori seats on councils and other organisations are also on the rise. Isn't the Treaty of Waitangi a partnership, and therefore co-governance is simply a flow on from that?
We reject that. My reading of the treaty is it says all people have the same rights and duties. And it comes to nationwide democratic institutions having some seats reserved at the table. I just don't think that's compatible with one person, one vote democracy. More than just Māori and Pākehā, we need to embrace all. There has to be a way of interpreting the treaty in a modern context that brings people together more than it starts to categorise and separate them. There needs to be a referendum on co-government. I mean, the treaty has been interpreted for 40 years by the courts, the tribunal, the public service, and some aspects of academia is something that is increasingly dividing people. I think when I see it, I read Ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, the same rights and duties for all. So we want to pass a Treaty Principles Act that says no, that the courts have got it wrong. This is what the democratically elected parliament say, and then actually invite the people of New Zealand to debate and ratify that in referendum. Our priorities are getting the treaty right, getting kids to school to learn valuable academic knowledge, getting the regulatory state under control so there's more productive activity and less compliance activity because we need to preserve our first world status, and getting government expenditure and tax under control. But in the long term, it's about transferring skills from one generation to the next. We are not transferring enough skills from one generation to another to maintain first world status, and that flows into what we can afford to do in healthcare. So, all of these things joined together: higher standards in education, more attendance, more attainment, more learning, more productivity, higher wages. People can afford to pay more tax, get better healthcare. It's, that all of those things connect together.
Apartheid for me is a system where people have a different set of political rights based on their ancestry. And of course this happened in South Africa to a much more dramatic extent than anything currently proposed in New Zealand, thank God. However, conceptually, the ideas that we now see in New Zealand are no different, in that they say in order to find out what your legal rights are, to participate in different affairs of state, you have to look at your family tree. The conceptual starting point was that people should have a different set of rights based on their background, and we're increasingly seeing that. And then if you look at what the life expectancy was prior to the arrival of these technologies, prior to democracy, prior to the rule of law, prior to written language, do you really think that everything that Europeans have brought to New Zealand is bad? 99.9% of New Zealanders, if you said, do we want a separate Māori parliament, would say, how on earth that's going to work? Sounds a bit like apartheid to me, no thank you.
Seymour's a disgrace. He uses his Māori whakapapa to weaponise against his own people.
Just a useless Māori, that's all.
I'd just like to let it be known that I consider myself a very useful Māori, and it was very mean of Willie, but there you go, that's his problem, not mine. If they spent more time focusing on why they disagree with the view specifically, instead of trying to attack my identity or whether I'm good or bad, then they might actually learn something.
Co-governance is the idea that New Zealand is formed on a partnership between races. Māori, who are 17% of New Zealand, should have an equal say in the management of public decisions. That is absolutely incompatible with the democratic ideals that New Zealand has been built on.
The party wants to pass legislation that redefines principles of New Zealand's founding document, the Treaty of Waitangi. The next step would be a referendum to enshrine those definitions into law.
That interpretation has grown up over several decades, but it's never been properly debated in public. There's Parliament that said the Treaty of Waitangi has principles in the first place. They don't exist in the actual document. The Act Party says that if Parliament declares the principles exist, it should be Parliament that defines them. Our argument is that this needs to happen for New Zealand, and if it doesn't, then the division will become even more entrenched.
From all of us here at ACT, your team of freedom fighters here in Parliament, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. We hope you have a great break surrounded by friends and you get sun, sunscreen, surf, sand and lots of happy memories captured for another year.
We also hope you have a very happy new year and get everything that you wish for in 2025.
From all of us here in ACT, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.